All right, guys, today we're going to go through the menu project step by step. First, I'm going to go through these walkthrough topics of Python. You do have the Python GUI apps with tkinter playlist available right here for some additional videos that you're going to need to watch. And then I just do this down here. This is in case you want to use functions and procedures in Scratch, just where you would find them. Talk about calling procedures. We talk about creating procedures. We talk about how to create this menu project as well. And I give you step-by-step examples or step-by-step instructions on what you should be doing. And then there are a few questions to answer at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to walk through everything that you need to know for this project. Starting off, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy these topics. And I'm going to open up REPL and create a new REPL. And I'm going to say, I click Python. There you go. I'm going to say example 2020 12:9. Right? And I'm going to paste these topics at the very top. And then I'm going to comment them out just so they're there at the top. Maybe I do this. Maybe I create a row of just hashtags for comments, right? And then I'll say one, the first thing we're talking about is creating and defining a function. The second thing is actually calling that function that we created. There's a big difference. Then we're going to talk about creating parameters in a function when you're creating your own function and you want to pass it certain parameters. After that, we're going to talk about how to actually pass arguments into where the parameter is going to be accepted in the function. Then we'll talk about the return statement, how to return values inside a function. We'll talk about variable scope, being able to determine whether a variable is a local variable or a global variable. We'll explain that. And then we'll talk about constants, which are variables that you can capitalize. And we'll talk more about that. String interpolation as well. And then the last thing we're going to end with are f strings. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to close with, this is just the reason I did this. You don't have to do this. I'm doing this because I just want to show you, hey, look, these are all comments. Don't worry about all this stuff up here. All right. So first thing on my list is defining or creating a function. So I have very specific classroom procedures. And for the first few weeks, I spend a lot of time developing those procedures with my students. What I mean by that is my students should know that when they walk in the classroom, that they immediately sit down, they join the meeting, and then they go ahead and start the warm-up. Once they're done the warm-up, then do something else productively until around 5 minutes when we talk about the warm-up. That's our beginning of class routine, or you can call it your warm-up procedure. And I spent time in the beginning defining that procedure so that way later on throughout the school year, I didn't have to keep repeating myself. And my students know every single time the bell rings, I'm going to go ahead and do this, this, and this. My daughters have a very specific bedtime routine. They know when I say, all right, go through your bedtime routine. If it's their shower night, they take a shower, they brush their teeth, make sure they go to the bathroom, they put their PJs on, they pick out books to read for story time, they put the oils on their feet, we read stories together, I give them hugs and kisses, good night, they have bunk beds, they go up to their bed, and then we pray, and then I say good night, and I leave. And that's the bedtime routine. And it happens every single night. And I spent some time defining that procedure so they would understand and know exactly what I'm talking about when I say, get ready for bed, do our bedtime routine. So by just saying, do your bedtime routine, they know to go through step by step and complete the bedtime procedure. Well, another word for a procedure in the Python programming language is a function. And there are functions that already exist in Python that we've been using. For example, I have a print function where that printed something out, right? I also have an input function that took user input. We've also used the int function, which if you put a string or any other variable type or anything inside of these parentheses, it converts it to a string if it can. We've also used the str or the string function, right? We've talked about length, the length function. We've talked about range. These are just to name a few of the functions we've talked about. Now, these functions, we've learned a little bit about them, and once you learn how to use these functions, you can use them in your programs. Now, at some point, when the Python programming language was being created, they decided to create these functions for you to use. And notice that they all have something in common. They all have these parentheses. As soon as the word input ends, you have these parentheses, int, str, etc. You have these parentheses. Someone created these functions for you already. But Python also gives you the opportunity to create your own functions. Okay, if you want something done your own way, you can create your own function and make it look something like this. You can name it whatever you want, as long as it doesn't conflict with a function that already exists. Like I can't create another print function, right? So watch this. So if I were to go through and I want to create my own function, let's say I want to call it define, and I'll say bedtime, the function for my daughters, right? And I'm going to close it, but open and close parentheses, and then press colon to define it, just like an if or a loop, a while loop or for loop, and then hit enter. Automatically indented for me here. But notice I'm defining. Def is short for define. So whenever you see def, just think, all right, I'm defining or creating a function here. I'm calling it bedtime. So I'm going to go through my bedtime function. So what is the bedtime function? Right? Let's say I want to print out all the things that deal with my daughter's bedtime. So the first thing, right? Say print, they're going to shower. Okay. Once they're done with their shower, they are going to brush their teeth. All right. And then after they've brushed their teeth, they can, well, I guess maybe even before that, they're putting their PJs on, right? Shower. We can say PJs, brush teeth, and go to the bathroom. That's important before bedtime. And then after that, they put oils on their feet. And that might seem weird for some of you, but it's a routine that we typically do. After that, they pick a book. Whoops. And after they pick a book, I want to, let's say, we read, I'll say story time. Okay. After story time, I'll just say, hugs and kisses, good night. And then they go up in their bunk and we pray. Well, I guess we normally turn like the lights out before that, so I can say lights out, we pray, and then say good night, and then we close the door. Right? This is their bedtime routine. So if I say, all right, it's time to go to bed, this is the bedtime routine that I've already defined for them. And I know right here you're thinking, well, why would I use this in a program? Why would I use this bedtime routine? Of course you wouldn't use it in a program. I'm just showing you what a function is. It's a list of things to do, but instead of writing all of this code over and over and over again, instead of telling them and standing by them every single time and saying, all right, take a shower now. Okay, now put your PJs on. All right, now brush your teeth. All right, now go to the bathroom. I don't want to have to be doing that every single day. The same way in my classroom, when you walk in, I don't want to tell you guys, all right, go ahead and log into the Meet. Go ahead and get started on your warm-up. Go through the weekly learning plan, right? That becomes just tedious. And I'm just like, I want to spend a lot of time defining this procedure so that later on we can use it. So I spent a lot of time making sure, my wife and I spent time defining these bedtime procedures. So then that way we wouldn't have to continuously tell them the same thing over and over and over again. And you do find at times they forget certain steps of the procedure. But the good thing is computers are not going to forget if you write the code properly. So let's go ahead and run this. And you'll notice something. Watch this. If I run it, nothing happens. The reason is just because I've defined this bedtime procedure. I haven't actually told my daughters, hey, it's time to go to bed, start your bedtime routine. Okay, I've just defined and created this procedure. I haven't actually used it yet. So I'm going to go ahead. Usually when you define a function, it's usually at the very top of your program. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add this line of comment, just like hashtags, right? Just to show you. Normally at the top of your program, you'll have like all your imports first, right? You'll have like, I don't know, we've used like time, right? Import time, import random. A lot of those are your imports that go at the very top. And then right after your imports, that's typically where you define your functions that you're going to use, if you are going to use any functions in your program. And almost all programs use a lot of functions. Like as you develop as a programmer, you'll be using a lot of functions. And the reason is you'll be able to repeat things over and over and over again more easier. Okay, so if I go in here and let's say I just call, now that I've talked about defining and creating a procedure, that's what I've talked about this entire time, let's actually call the function. Imagine I'm like calling out and saying, all right, girls, it's bedtime, right? Let's say they're downstairs. So, all right, it's bedtime. And they go running up the steps, right? So that's actually calling the function. Like I said, another name for a procedure is a function, right? So we're going to use the function that we made. And the way that I call that procedure, like I call out, imagine that I'm calling out, right? Open and close, see the open and close parentheses, right? So if I'm going through there and I say bedtime, this is just where I defined it. If I didn't call my procedure down here, then nothing would happen. If I run it, it goes through over and over and over again. Let's say, like I said, let's say it's like the next night, right? And I want them to do the steps of bedtime all over again. Rather than defining it all over again, and rather than printing out all these things, I know I can always use this function. I run it, and it prints it out twice, right? So I could use this function as many times as I want throughout my program. Right? If I run it 3 times, right, it goes through. So once you define that procedure, you can use it forever. So if you create a well-defined procedure of steps and things that you want done, you can always reuse that procedure. Okay, it's good to spend time in creating these procedures so that way you don't have to reuse and type print over and over and over and over again. you can just define it in a procedure and keep going. Let's say I create another procedure here, and I'll define it as like a greeting, right? And let's just say, I'll just say, hello, welcome to computer science class, right? So rather than printing that out over and over and over again, whenever I wanted to print it out, like whenever, let's say, let's use this in another example. Let's say it's the first day of school, and as every student comes in, right, I want to greet them. And as a student comes in, rather than thinking of something new to say every single time, I'll say the same exact thing. I'll just say, welcome to computer science class. Welcome to computer science class. And I develop a greeting that I want that's standard. So let's say I go ahead and define this function greeting, and then I call it down here. Remember, if I didn't actually call it and run it, only the bedtime function goes through, right? If I actually call the greeting function that we created and run it, it says, hello, welcome to computer science class. And then completely non-related, we go through the bedtime function, right? But you can create as many functions as you want. All you have to do is write DEF, short for define, and then name your procedure or your function, name it whatever you want, right? And then open and close parentheses, colon, press enter, make sure it's indented, and have your procedure there. Okay, some of you used procedures or used functions in the last project with the Dragon Realm project. So you guys already had a good understanding of it, but I just wanted to make sure to cover this. Okay, so we've defined these functions, we've called a function. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put all of this inside a block string, and I'm going to push it down so that way we don't have to worry about it right now. Okay, putting it in a block string just kind of comments out the code, so you can't use that for right now. Okay, so I run the program right now, nothing happens. Okay, that's fine. So let's say I want to define another procedure, right? Usually you define your procedure or define your function. The word that we're going to be using last, function. Define your function at the beginning of the program. So let's say I define mine as add. Okay, and I want to create this function. I guess first I should tell you what I want this function to do. I want this function to take in two numbers and add the two numbers together, and then tell me the answer. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add, right? And what I want to do here is, notice that I'm already indented here. If I wanted to pass values into this function to use, I could use something called parameters, right? Creating parameters in a function. And the way I do that is just type variables that I want to use. Let's say I want to use two numbers, right? So I'll use x and y. We use x and y a lot in math, right? You guys have taken different math classes that have used x and y a lot. And I'm just going to use those as variables to store values, right? So someone's going to pass in two values. I'll call one value x and the other one y. I'm going to create a variable called z and set it to the value of x plus y. Okay, and if I just hover over top here, it says local variable z is assigned to but never used. And that's fine. Okay, the last step, something I want to do before I talk about arguments, I'll talk about step 5 here, how to return the answer. And the way I return the answer, all I do is type in return z, right? So I've defined this function, and I'm just going to add my line of comments here once again, just to show you that this is where we define our functions. And you don't have to add this here. This is just a visual representation. This is where we define our function. This is where we're going to use it. Now, you always have to define it first and then use it later. You can't use it first and then define it later. Okay, that's why we like putting our functions that we define at the top. So how do I use this function? Okay, let's say I wanted to add any two numbers together. All right, so what I'll do here is I'll say add, and it says, like, it tells me, hey, look, you're going to pass two values in here. One's going to be x, one's going to be y. All right, so let's say I want to add together 4 and I want to add together 3. Right? If I run this, it's not going to print it out. Watch. It runs and it actually does the procedure. I have to actually print out the answer, right? So if I want to print it out on the screen and make sure it's working, I put this inside a print function, right? I'm going to print it out and 7 should show up. And 7 does. So let me explain step by step what just happened here. So I create a function called add that's going to accept two values, x and y. Down here, when I actually called the function, right? When I called it, I passed two values, a 4 and a 3, into this function. These are called my arguments, okay? And when you are actually running a program and values are being entered and then used later on, these values that you're entering down here, they're called arguments. So if I pass the argument of 4 into x here and the argument of 3 into y, up here they're called procedures. Up here they're called parameters. X and y are called parameters. So I'll say x and y in this line are called parameters. And I'll maybe make this a little bigger, right? And then I'll say 4 and 3 in this line are called arguments. All right, so notice that this 4 is called an argument. You pass it in, and then the new name for it is a parameter. Right, so when you enter in down here, it's called an argument, but when it's accepted up here, it's called a parameter. I know a lot of programmers that still to this day that mix up the two and just say parameter. And I'm not a snob when it comes to using the proper verbiage, but at the same time, that's what it's called. If you say parameter, I probably know what you're talking about. But just for like the AP exam, you're probably going to want to know the difference. Okay, so if I'm passing this 4 into here, it takes the value of x, and the 3 takes the value of y. So if I know x is 4 and y is 3, I'm going to go down here and say, well, 4 plus 3 is assigned to the value of z, which is 7. So 7 is assigned to z. 4 plus 3 is 7, so now z is 7. And then I'm going to return whatever that value is, return z. So that's why when I run this program, I get 7. Now, if I want to change these numbers up, if I want to change 4 to, I don't know, like 7 and 8, right? I use like, I don't know, 7 and 24. I run it, I get 31. Let's say 769 and plus 242. And I run it, I get 1011. Right? So as you go through here, right, and pass these numbers into here, no matter what numbers I pass in, right, I'm able to do these calculations. So, like I mentioned before, these are called arguments, and they're passed into and become parameters. So 4 and 3, I'll just say the values. Originally we used 4 and 3, remember? So if I put a 4 back here and a 3 here, these are my arguments, and then these are my parameters. The parameters are located inside of the parentheses. Okay, when I run it, I should get 7. So we've created a function. We called the function down here. We created parameters, my x and y. And I could have named them anything rather than x and y. I could have named them something more specific. Typically, it's good to be very specific about your variable names. Okay, I passed arguments into my function, and then I returned them using the return statement. Okay, returning a value from inside the function. So if you have a value inside the function that you want to return, right, you can do that by using this return statement. This return is lowercase. Also, def is lowercase too for define. Okay, let's say I wanted to, let's do this. Let's say there's actually another way that I could access this variable z without using return. Someone asked me a question about this in the last project and asked, what does global mean? And I'll explain what global means right here. So when you have a variable, right, if I were to print out right now and say print z, right, so I should be able to print the value out, right? Let's see what happens. Nope, it doesn't let me. The reason is it says name error. Name z is not defined. Wait, what? What do you mean z is not defined? I've defined z right there in line 14. Okay, and it says local variable z is assigned to but never used. So I defined it, it recognizes it. How come I can't see it? The reason is because in this case right here, z is considered a local variable. It's local, meaning z is only able to be seen inside of this function. Okay, it's a local variable. So anybody outside, anything outside of this function, outside of here, right, you can't see what's inside of it. You can't see z, right? It's like a secret. Local is like a secret that we're keeping within. Okay, if I want to make that secret, like, and get it out, if I want everyone to know what the value of z is, right, let's just say, like, let's imagine like z is like how much money I have. I don't want anyone to know how much money I have, right? So I assign it as a local variable. And you don't have to do anything special to assign it as a local variable. I'll naturally do that. Let's say I want to announce to everyone the value of z. Everyone in the program, every single function, everything can see the value of z here. The way I would do that is I would say global z. Okay, I would just use the word global. And global, when you think about the globe, means like everywhere, right? So everywhere in my function can now see the value of z. And notice as soon as I type that, watch, I'll even like get rid of it. See how like there's that squiggly line underneath and it says undefined? Well, if I say, all right, everybody, I'm going to call out to the world, right? Globally tell everybody, hey, look, here's the value of z. And now everyone listens and is like, oh yeah, that's the value of z, right? So if I say, like, I don't know, I want to add 4 and 2, okay? And let's say I didn't have this before, right? And I run it, this error, right? But if I yell out to the world, hey everybody, this is the value of z, global z, you can declare global before you use it here, and I print it out, I get z. Okay, so in this case, I can see z. I know what z is. If I change the value 9, 3, 5, 2, 7, and I don't know, 2, 6, 8, 1, 1. Right, let's add these two together and I print it out. And sure enough, it will add the two numbers together. Okay, I get 120,338. So I defined this function, right? I had this local variable z, but then I defined it as a global variable, so that way I could see on the outside. Just like before, remember that if I were to just return z from here, I can get rid of this, and I can print out the same exact thing. Remember that $100,000, thinking about money, 100,000, whatever it was, 120,000 value here. If I run it, right, it gives it to me again, 120,338. Okay, so in this example, you can use global or return, but some you'll learn later on, it's kind of outside of the scope of this lesson, but you'll learn later on that it's usually best to return the variable. Each function should do one thing. Make your function simple. And you can actually use a function inside of another function. Okay, I'll talk about that later. So moving forward, we have our return statement. We've talked about variable scope, global, accessible anywhere and everywhere throughout the program, versus local, only inside of the function, right? And I would say like a secret, right? It's a secret. Don't tell anybody. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put a block string around this. All right. And I'll push this down to the bottom, right? And I'll clear my screen by just running it. So now I'm going to talk about constants. All right, so let's say I want to use a variable, but I know that value will never change, right? A variable that changes, a lot of things in life are changing nonstop. Values are always changing. But if I know a value, or if I know something that will never change, right? In Python, and actually in a lot of programming languages, when you're declaring a constant, something that never changes, rather than saying like name assigned to Mr. Danza, right? Or I'll call it like my name. Rather than writing it like that, if you ever have anything that is not changing throughout your program, it's best to write it in all caps. So I'll say my name. Now, what's the reason behind that? The reason is that so if other programmers look at your code, they know what might change throughout the program and what is going to remain constant. It's just a good programming technique to name constants in all caps. Like if I were to declare my age, I wouldn't write age in all caps because my age is always going to be changing, right? So my address could change. But there are some things I feel like are really never going to change about me. I think my name is always going to be Mr. Danza. And so if later on in a program, if I want to print out my name, right, I would put my name and print out, and it prints out Mr. Danza on the screen. And if I'm using something like I said, age, that's probably going to change at some point, right? I'm 30 years old. That's going to change. Let's see, what's another good one that I could put in there? Something that's never going to change is my graduation year, right? So I can say like grad year. I'll say my graduation year from high school, right, was 2008. Okay, so there's a value that you know is never going to change, right? Go ahead and type it in all caps like this, right? Let's print out all of these. Just to show you, like I could type in lowercase letters and you could still do that, but if you know a value will not change throughout your program, it's recommended to put it in all caps. Okay, so as you look at this, right, just know that there is a difference between constants and variables. Constants you would capitalize all letters. Right, you don't have to capitalize Mr. Danza in all caps, right? But whatever you name that, it would normally be a variable. It's going to be a constant, okay? And that's just if you ever see something in all caps, you're like, oh, that's a constant. That's not going to change. All right, so let's talk about string interpolation. We've talked about a few ways to like concatenate strings, right? We've talked about strings a lot. And even if you're like printing something out, right? Let's say, I don't know, Let's say I'll create a variable called fave color, and I'll assign it the value of like blue. And then I'll create a variable called, let's see, fave food, and I'll put PB&J. So before, if I wanted to print out something like, I don't know, I want to print out your favorite color is blank, right? Is fave color, right? And I have to press a space and plus, and then space, and then another quotation mark, and then another space, a comma, and your favorite food is, this is annoying, right? Space, close quotation mark, open, or space again, plus, and then you type in the variable name, right? Space, plus, space, and then open quotation marks again, and then have to add a period at the end, right? You had to stop what you were doing right here. You had to add a plus symbol. You had to reopen what you were doing. Stop again, add another plus symbol, type in the variable, add another plus, open up what you were doing again inside quotation marks. And there's a lot of quotation marks and a lot of pluses, right? And it's not really pretty. Like, I don't like reading it like that, right? So if I were to run this program, right, your favorite color is blue and your favorite food is PB&J, right? So let's say I just did like, I don't know, let's just say your favorite color is fave color, right? And I'll put that inside. Let's just leave it here. What's going on? Oh, I guess I have one extra quotation mark. There we go. Okay, so once again, if I run this one, right, your favorite color is blue. I had to end my quotation marks, add a plus, say fave color, add another plus, and it just, to me, I don't like that, right? I don't like having to start something and restart it. And let's say I forgot to add this space here, right? If I forget to add the space, I run it, my favorite color is blue, right? And it's just, I don't know, it just gets kind of annoying. So there's an easier way. And the first way I'm going to show you is string interpolation. What you would do is, watch this. I'm going to get the same exact result. What I'm going to do is, I'll say print. Rather than having to open and close quotation marks and add a plus, I can do this and say your favorite color is, and then I'm going to write the percent symbol and then S. And that stands for a string. And whatever string you want to put inside of there, I'll put my percent symbol and then just type in whatever my variable was I wanted in there, which was fave color. So to me, this saved a little bit of time, right? And I'll add the period here. The period is just meant, you don't, like this percent %s is separate from the period. The period is just the end of my sentence, right? So whenever I see that percent %s, it's going to look at the very end outside of the quotation marks and find the percent symbol and see what's like attached to it, almost like a hashtag, right? Imagine like you're on like social media and it's like hashtag whatever. Well, it's going to find that and use whatever's attached to it and put it there. So now watch this, right? It does the same exact thing, and you don't have to like add the pluses, and you don't have to re-add the quotation marks again. Maybe you mess something up in the process of that, or forget to like add this second plus, and you're like, wait, what's going on? What's wrong with my code, right? It saves you some time. This is called string interpolation, right? Another way you could use this, right? Let's say, I don't know, and I could say, I'll create a variable called like money, right? And let's say you have $4. Well, if I were to print out like something like you have, I don't know, if I say you have, and then I'll say money dollars. Well, I guess let's just say you have, I'll keep it simple. I'll put the money symbol. Say you have this amount of money, right? So the first thing that happens is I get, oh, well, you can't concatenate an int. So I have to go down here and I have to concatenate this to say, all right, well, that's a string, right? I have to go ahead and cast it as a string and then run it, right? And so you have $4. Well, I can do something like this. Watch this. If I'm using string interpolation, right, I'll go ahead and put those two examples together. If I'm using string interpolation, I can do something like this. Watch. You have, and I'll add, let's say I want to make it into a float with, right, so let's say I want to make it into a float with 2 decimal places. Notice the 4 here. If I just add $4, right, let's say I want 4 and then decimal 0, 0. Okay, this is important because you're going to be using this on your project here. The way you would do that is you would write you have, and then write your money symbol, right? And then we'll say like percent with, we're telling the computer, all right, you're going to put a decimal with 2 decimal places and it's going to be converted to a float, right? And then on the outside, right, I put my percent symbol and I put money and run this. You have $4. Notice I didn't have to convert to a string, okay? That I'm able to convert this to a float. And I'm able to do this without converting to a string, and I get the decimal. So whatever amount of money that I put in, let's say, I don't know, $5.50, rather than it being 5.5, right? It'll give me $5.50. If I have, I don't know, $302, right? And I run it, and this is the difference. So it allows me to set it where every single thing is going to have 2 decimal places, right? So this $sign doesn't mean anything. That doesn't really do anything. That's just like for me actually typing it out and printing it and making it look nice. The real thing is done right here. Percent, which is basically saying, hey, look on the outside for the value. Whatever's outside there, convert it to have decimal with 2 decimal places, right? And make it a float, okay, which is not an integer. An integer doesn't have a decimal. A float has a decimal. Okay, so if you're ever wondering or need help remembering that, right, I put it up here. String interpolation, right, where you would have that percent %s for a string, a percent with 2 decimal places, and so that's a float, right, and then you'd have the percent symbol and then the variable name. So you can even add like a space here if you want to. I like thinking of it as like a hashtag, so like I put it right next to it. That's just how I remember it, almost like hashtag money, right? And put money where you see the hashtag inside the quotation marks, like here, right? That's how I like thinking of it, but you can add a space. You'll probably see a lot of times with the space, but that's called string interpolation. Now, there's actually an even easier way. We'll go back to this last example here, right? I'll push this down a little bit. There's even easier way. I'll take out the money part. Okay, so favorite color is this. Let's go back to like, and I'll even take out string interpolation here, and I'll start over. Okay, so your favorite color is, remember how we had your favorite color is this, and your favorite food is, I add a space, I gotta click in here, I've gotta add another space, I gotta add a plus, right? And I have to add my favorite food. It's just a lot of work, right? And in programming, we like to be efficient. Some people might call it lazy, right? So if I run this, all right, let's run it. Your favorite color is blue, and your favorite food is, there you go, is PB&J. Right? The reason why it looks weird is because, there you go, favorite food is PB&J. So if I can call this, I guess I can call this like the old way. The old way. There's nothing wrong with the old way. Like if you like doing it that way, then you can do it. But a few years ago, Python was like, all right, this is annoying. Let's make it something simpler, right? Let's make something that's even easier than string interpolation when you're combining strings. Let's create something called F strings, right? So watch this. I use F strings more than actually going through with this type of concatenation. Watch this. So I'm going to type the same exact thing, right? What I'm going to do is inside my print function, I'm going to write F, okay? Meaning like I'm going to format whatever shows up after this, right? So, and then inside quotation marks, right? I'm going to go ahead and print out what I want. So you're printing out, make sure that F is inside the parentheses, but outside of these quotation marks. So print F, right? I'll say your favorite color is, and watch this, curly braces, fave color, close curly braces, and your favorite food is curly braces, fave food, close curly braces, period. Now, first, let me run this. I get the same exact thing. If you're like me, you look at this and you say, this second way with an F string, so I'll put it and I'll say F string, right? This way, to me, is a lot easier. I don't have to worry about spacing and adding a plus symbol and adding the variable name, another plus symbol, and another quotation mark. I have to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 quotation marks instead of just 2. I have to use 1, 2, 3, 4, which I guess are the same as my curly brackets, right? But I have to add spaces in between here. Make sure my spacing is right, right? If I like forgot to add like a space there, it would combine is blue together. I have to consciously put that space there. This just looks cleaner and looks nicer. Your favorite color is fave color, and your favorite food is fave food, right? To me, I like this second way, right? These are called F strings. Now, as you see, they print out the same exact thing, and you might like the old way. You can choose whether you want to use F strings or the old way. Up to you. Okay, so we've talked about 9 different things today. We talked about how to define and create a function using the def keyword. Make sure you have the colon, and then also make sure you have make sure it's indented, right? Calling a function was just using the function that we already created. When we created parameters in a function, we were then able to pass arguments into those parameters and use them throughout my function. And then when I finally got to a value, I was able to return that value using the return statement. We talked about variable scope, global versus local. Local variables can only be seen inside the function, or global variables can be seen all throughout the program. And then we talked about constants, how constants are really just variables that are capitalized, right? So all the letters are capitalized. We talked about string interpolation, which included that percent symbol there, and is sometimes maybe easier to use than the old way. Whenever we want to use like money, which we're going to be using in this project, we're going to end up using some string interpolation. And then also we have F strings, which are a great way to maybe replace the old way. If you thought the other way was annoying, or you like the new way better, or you want to try it out, you can. You can interchange throughout. You can use some of the old way, some of the new way. It's good to kind of stick to one, but it's a cool feature of Python. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead here and do this. I'm going to go ahead and put all this in a block string. I'm make it look nice. And I'll pull that up there. And then I'll pull this up. And I think I got one more. Yeah, so that's the first one I did, I believe. There you go. Okay, so these are all things I talked about today. Like I said, these hashtags were just there, the hash symbol are just there to just separate and just create a visual, nice, clean feature. Okay, so I'm going back to the project. We talked about all these things in Python. Now, in order to do the menu project, you need to watch the videos in this playlist. And I'll actually attach the link in this video too, so that way if you just want to easily just click on it and do that. I would do that, like if you didn't do it last week for the last project, I would do it like right now. I would stop this video and go down and click on this link. Okay. And then I show you how to use functions and procedures in Scratch, right? I said function / procedures, right? That's what they're called. In Scratch, it says make your own block, right? And you can really, that's make your own function. And you can add input, right? And this would be like you're adding different parameters that you're passing into it. All right, so what's going to be on the AP exam? So we're talking about first, well, I have developing the procedure down here, but let's actually show how to call the procedure. So it says programmers break down problems into smaller, more manageable pieces. Well, yeah, that's called decomposition, breaking down things. I don't like looking at a big problem. I look at big problems all the time. I feel like one of my jobs is being a problem solver, taking the big problem and breaking it down to smaller chunks and smaller pieces that you can maybe put in a list of things to do and then check those things off as you go. So we break down problems into smaller, more manageable pieces. I think more than just programmers, I think any successful person does that. By creating procedures, also called functions, and leveraging parameters, talk about parameters, programmers generalize processes that can be reused. So we create things that can be reused. We create a function that can be reused over and over and over again. Procedures allow programmers to draw upon existing code. Well, what does that mean? We use existing code. They try to, like, everything from College Board and AP tries to like sound super like technical and professional. I'll break it down for you. We're using code that already exists, right? It's already been tested, allowing them to write programs more quickly with more confidence. Okay, I always want to be able to write my programs quicker and better, right? And do so confidently. It shouldn't always be, even though the internet's a great tool to look up different like Stack Overflow and figure out what your projects, like Google what's going on, what's wrong with my project. That's fine, but it's also good to be confident in code, right? And know exactly what functions that you're using do. For procedure calls, whenever you call a procedure, write statements to call procedures and determine the result or effect of a procedure call. Okay, so a procedure, and I said called a function in Python, is a named group of programming instructions. Okay, we named our function, and it gives a step-by-step set of instructions that may have parameters and return values. You don't need to have parameters, right? We create a function to start off called greeting, and we created a function called bedtime routine, or just a thing called a bedtime. Right? And we didn't pass different parameters in there. We did pass different parameters into our add function that we created. So it says it may have parameters and it may have return values. Ours that we created in our add function had both. Procedures are referred to by different names, such as method or function, right? In Java, they're called methods. So confusing, right? Depending on the programming language. Parameters are input variables. We discussed what parameters are. The reason why I go through the project first is so that way I can like use these examples when I'm going through. I'm like, oh, we already talked about this. Parameters are input values of a procedure. Okay. Arguments specify the values. Remember how at the bottom we were entering like 4 and 3, right? Or whatever the user enters. Like sometimes you might be taking user input and asking the user, enter a number, enter another number, and then putting those values into the function. Okay, arguments specify the values of the parameters when a procedure is called. Okay, a procedure call. So whenever I create my procedure, that's fine. But when I call it, actually in my program, interrupts the sequential execution. Meaning, if I'm going down step 1, step 2, step 3, going down, and I hit a procedure, it finds the procedure at the top when I defined it and goes through all those steps at the top. When it's done the procedure, it goes back to where it was before and keeps going down the list. Okay, so let's say you have like step 1, step 2. Oh, here's a function. Let's find it. Let's go to the top. All right, I found where it's at. Let's do all these things. All right, I'm done the function. Now I'm going back to where I left off and continue down the program. Okay, so that's what it means when it says interrupts the sequential execution of statements, causing the program to execute the statements within the procedure before continuing. Once the last statement of the procedure or the return statement is executed, flow of control is returned back to the point, so right where it was before. Here's some examples of what you'll see on the AP exam. A procedure or a function will be written like this. It will say procedure in all caps and then tell you what the procedure is and if it has any parameters, right? So that's how you might see it. Display, right? I said that's the same. Oh, by the way, I said more about return statements later on, right? Display, right? That's the same as the print function. Whenever you see display, that's the print function on the AP exam. Return, we talked about return. A result, like if you're creating a procedure and it returns a result, this assigns the result to a value, okay? And then at the very end, input, right? We use input functions all the time. This accepts a value from the user and returns the input value. So creating these procedures, right? When we're making these procedures, when we're developing them, what should we do? All right, programmers break down problems into smaller, more manageable pieces. This is the exact same thing as this. Okay, it was just repeated. Explain how the use of procedural abstraction manages complexity in a program. So what is procedural abstraction? I talked about abstraction. I didn't use the word abstraction, but I said that whenever my students come into the classroom, they know to start the warm-up and they know the warm-up procedure, right? I have abstracted out the details of what the warm-up is and just say, do the warm-up. And you guys know what it does because you've done it a million times. And I spent time defining that procedure step by step in the past, right? So when I say do the warm-up, that is called an abstraction because the warm-up really has several details attached to it that are done behind the scenes. The same with like, think about electricity, right? If I turn a light switch on and the lights come on, right? I don't have to know how electricity works in order to know how to flip a light switch on and off, right? All I need to know is what it does. When I flip it up, the lights turn on. When I flip it down, the lights go off. So when I mention abstraction in this sense, you don't really have to you learn what the procedure is, but if I say warm up, I've abstracted out the details of what the warm up actually is and defined it elsewhere, right? So this says, explain how the use of procedural abstraction manages complexity. I just told you how one way. That's why we use blocks. Like you don't know what happens behind the scenes sometimes in Scratch, right? But you know what it does. So one common type of abstraction is procedural abstraction, which provides a name for a process. Bedtime routine, warm-up routine. I could even say my morning routine. When I wake up in the morning, what do, right? I could come up with a name for it and just do it. And that's like naming a process, right? So it provides a name for a process and allows a procedure to be used only knowing what it does, not how it does it. Okay, and if I click on here, it says think of defining a specific morning routine procedure. When I say morning routine, you follow all the steps in your morning routine procedure. Procedural abstraction allows a solution to a large problem to be based on the solutions of smaller subproblems. So you can break down a big problem into several functions, right? And then call each function. This is accomplished by creating procedures to solve each of the subproblems. The subdivision of a computer program into separate subprograms is called modularity. Okay, and I put a little comment there. To think of breaking a computer course down into 16 weeks, and each week is called a module. When you completed all the modules, you have completed the entire course. So if I just said, all right, do all this work, right, and didn't break it down into modules, for this class I call them weeks, right? But if I said, do all this work and didn't break it down, it could be overwhelming. But if I break it down into this module, module 1, module 2, module 3, module 4, week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and continue through that pattern, you can go through and do each one and feel a little bit better about accomplishing each, right? So this is called modularity. A procedural abstraction may extract shared features to generalize functionality instead of duplicating code. This allows for program code reuse. So I'm not writing the same code over and over and over, right? I can just put it inside a function and call that function. It helps manage complexity if I have to change something in a program. Using parameters allows procedures to be generalized even more, enabling procedures to be reused with a range of input values or arguments. Using procedural abstraction helps improve code readability as well. Being able to read through and see exactly what the function does when they actually create it, and then when it's called in the bottom. Helps other people when they look at your code. It helps them be able to read it better and make more sense. Even for yourself, if you write a program and then you do something else for a few months and you come back to the program, sometimes you forget what the point of the program was or where things were. So it's good to not only use comments but also define very specific procedures. Using procedural abstraction in a program allows programmers to change the internals of the procedure to make it faster, more efficient, use less storage, etc., without needing to notify users of the change as long as what the procedure does is preserved. Then the last thing says, develop procedural abstractions to manage complexity in a program by writing procedures. The return statement, which we've used already, may appear at any point inside the procedure and causes an immediate return. Okay, it returns a value from the procedure back to the calling statement, back to your program where you're at before. Okay, so that was really everything that we wanted to learn beforehand. We're going to start this menu project now. Okay, menu project. In this project, using the tkinter, or I call it kinter sometimes, the kinter module for Python, you will make a touchscreen restaurant menu. Well, let me explain that. Imagine that you're a waiter at a restaurant, and you go up with your pad of paper and you say, all right, so what would you like to eat, right? And you might write things down, right? I know for me, I need to write things down. Some waiters, they memorize it. I feel like more and more waiters are memorizing things. I would not be able to do that. I would mess that up. I am bad. I've played way too many sports, had way too many concussions. I can't remember anything anymore. My short-term memory is not very good. You tell me, whenever my wife, I'm going out somewhere to go get food, my wife's all right, I want this with this with this. I said, just text me because I'm gonna forget or I'm gonna mess something up. I don't want it to be my fault. So let's say I'm a waiter and I come up and say, all right, what would you like to eat, right? And I write everything down, right? And then I go back, I take whatever they ordered, right? And I go back. So let's say there's a computer in the back, right? And I go and I touch exactly I don't know, they ordered this, they ordered this, they ordered this, they ordered this, right? And then I press a button, maybe send the order back to the cooks, right? we're going to create a graphical user interface that does something like that. Another example would be like if you go to like Wawa. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Wawa before. It's just like a gas station, but they have different sandwiches. It's like a little convenience shop, you know, that you can get sandwiches made, and they all have like little touch screens in them, so you can touch exactly what you want. Oh, that sandwich looks good. I want that. What do I want? I want cheese, mayonnaise, lettuce, spinach, green peppers. Would you like to add anything? Yeah, let's add a side of this. All right, and then click like complete, and then a receipt prints out. Take the receipt to the front, and you like pay for it. It's not going to be that complicated, but it's the same kind of concept where you're pressing a button and that's selecting what you want. Right. So in this project, we're going to use TK-Enter module. This project begins assuming you have watched the Python GUI apps videos from the last project. Do it, please. If you haven't, make sure you have watched the first 19 videos from here in the Python GUI apps with TK-Enter user playlist. So to watch the first 19 videos, here's the playlist. If you have already done this, then skip step 1. Good job. But now, step 2, watch 7 videos in the playlist, playlist above in the same playlist, starting with the delete method all the way through how to change a widget's height. Okay? Create a touchscreen restaurant menu. All right? I'm going to follow the simplest possible version this time. The last project I made mine a little bit maybe too difficult, so I'll create a very simple program that I feel like would satisfy many of the requirements. Okay, but if you're capable of doing more, I encourage you to be creative on this project. I say it like several times in the file. So it says create a touchscreen restaurant menu. Your menu must include the following. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. First off, if you have a Chromebook, like you can use REPL, but I don't recommend. Like, please, like if you're a programmer, like look into maybe for Christmas or maybe for your birthday, ask for a computer that isn't a Chromebook, right? There's just limitations on what you can do. If you have a Mac or PC, right? You can download Python, but it's not going to work all the time on a Chromebook, right? And the reason I say REPL is not the best is because it's kind of hard to see your window that you're creating in REPL, right? So just throwing it out there, right? I wouldn't use REPL, but anyway, I'm going to go to idle, right? And I had a question. Someone said, well, I have a Mac and I don't see file, edit, shell, debug. I don't see these options. They're at the very top of your screen if you have a Mac, okay? So this is my shell here. I want to create a new file. Let's say file, new file. If you have idle or you have Visual Studio Code, right? PyCharm, you can use that. So I'll say new file. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save this as, I'll say menu, and today's date is 2020, 12/09, the time is 11:54, just before noon. Okay. And this is my empty file here. All right, so all your code is going to go in here. The first step said, all right, well, first let's create the window, right? Let's do that. So what I'm going to do to start off, I'm going to say from TK-Enter import. Sorry. And if you're right here and don't understand what that means, like if you've never seen that before, watch the videos. Right? You really don't have to know what it means right now. All you have to know is that it's importing the things from TK-Enter. Okay, but there's going to be things that I'm kind of going to speed through because I've already talked about it in the videos where I've talked about it earlier in this lesson. I'll do my best to explain, but you have, especially for the next project, you have to watch these videos. Okay. So let's create my main window, my window that's going to pop up, right? Like this is an example of a window. So let's create my main window. Normally, when people create a main window, they call it root. You can call it whatever you want. I call mine root here, and I'll say root and I will use a TK class from TK inter. Inter is short for like interface, right? So from the TK class, right, let's create a window. And if I just run this right now, it's blank window. All right, let's also make sure we loop through and keep it open, right? So I'll say, as things change, I'll say root dot main loop. Okay. And I'm going to write my code on the inside here. So if I run this again, right, all I do is add main loop there, but it does the same thing. Okay, I have my blank window. And I'm able to resize my window if I want, right? Make it bigger. Look at this up here. It says TK, right? That's my screen title. I don't want TK to be my screen title. The first step says window title. Change the window title. All right, let's do it. How do I do that? So I'll say root title, and I'll call it. I'll stick with my Danza PB&J restaurant, right? Maybe I'll just say like this. Order screen. Notice that's inside quotation marks here, right? And I'll run it. And I can't see it all the way, right? This window is too small. Let's make this window bigger. The way I make it bigger, I'll say root.geometry. And I don't know, make it like 400 by 400. Maybe that'll be big enough. I don't know. Let's see. We can always make it bigger. The first value is your x value, and the second one is your y value. All right, so let's run it. So, all right, so Danza PB&J order screen. So let's say this screen exists in the back, like with the restaurant. Like you just took the order and you go back to the back of my restaurant. And you're like typing in, right? Sometimes like people who like order, people or waiters like have the touch screen already with them, right? That's nice. Here's my blank screen. Okay, not even close to being done the project. That's not what I want. Color, add color, right? So we will add color eventually, but I'll maybe put this, I'll move this down here. You guys will never probably even see this. Okay, so I'll move this. Here. Color, add color. You guys add color to it. We'll add that later. So buttons. All right. So what buttons I gotta add? Menu items. Each menu item should have a unique price. Do not make everything on the menu cost the same. When a menu item button is clicked, add the menu. All right, so that's button functionality. I know I gotta pick my menu items. All right, let's just go ahead and get all that so I don't get confused. All right, let's pick my menu items. All right, so I'll go ahead here. Let's think. What are some things that I want on my menu? Let's say, I don't know, items on the menu. Let's do, in my peanut butter and jelly restaurant, you can get a grape PB&J, you can get a strawberry PB&J, let's say you can get a blackberry PB&J, and I'll say you can get a chocolate chip. Okay, so let's say these are the only 4 things on my menu, right? Maybe I'll add a drink on there. Maybe I'll take out the blackberry PB&J, right? And I'll just add like. All right, so these are the things you can get. I'm going to just put that up at the top in comments so that way I can see that. So I'm going to have to create a button for grape PB&J, a button for strawberry, chocolate chip, and coffee. So I'm going to need to make 4 buttons. All right, let's do this. So to make our first button, I'll make the grape PB&J. So I'll call this like grape PBJ, and I'll just say BTN for like button, right? Grape PBJ button. And I'll make it short. I'll just say, well, yeah, I'll keep it there. And I will go ahead and create my button from the button class. This button is eventually going to be stored in the root. Okay, and the text on the button is going to say grape PBJ. Okay. And then I have to actually like put it on the screen and pack it in there. So I'll say grape PBJ. And you guys don't have to use a pack method. You guys can like design it in nice columns and rows. I'm just doing the simplest possible way right now, so that way you guys don't yell at me for explaining it in too hard of a way. There's my button, grape PB&J. I click it, nothing happens. That's fine. All right, so got my grape PB&J. What else do I want on there? Watch this. I'm going to copy my code. So I want, how many buttons? So I want 4, 2, 3, 4. All right, so let's change the name of these buttons. This one, the second thing is going to be a strawberry PBJ, right? So I'll say strawberry PBJ. And I'll change this to strawberry PBJ. This is going to be not the grape PB&J button. This one's going to be the, I'll say, chalk. I'll say chalk cookie, right? I'll say, yeah, chalk cookie. But the problem with that is, like, let's say later on you want to add something to your menu that's like a chocolate cookie. Might get confused, right? So, all right, I'll do it. I'll make this one where I'll say choc chip cookie. But all right, and I'll change this to like choc C cookie for like choc chip. It's a choc chip cookie, but or not PB&J, chocolate chip cookie PB&J. That sounds awesome. I definitely want that on the menu. And then coffee. So I'll say the coffee button. So I'm just making the easiest possible way. And I'll say coffee. Now we have to pack all these in here, right? We created the buttons, but then we have to actually like put them on the screen. So I'll say strawberry. Make sure you spell everything correctly. Button.pack. Chalk chip cookie begin pack. And then the last one, coffee. Pack. All right, let me run this. Let me show you this. All right, I've got my 4 buttons on here. Okay, it doesn't look very nice, but I went ahead and did it. So grape, strawberry PB&J, chocolate chip cookie, coffee. Right. So now we need to add some other things on here. Let's go to the project. So I created my buttons. All right. So don't make everything cost the same amount. I guess I should determine my prices, right? So a grape PB&J, let's see. A grape PB&J is going to cost $2.75. Right? This is a gourmet PB&J we're talking about here, so I'm up in the price, $3.75, right? Strawberry, gonna cost a little bit more. We're gonna say $4.25. These are like nice sandwiches, like nice bread, the best like jelly you can imagine, perfectly spread peanut butter, right? It's gonna be awesome. And they're big. They're not just like on this like white bread. They're on this nice like good bread with like nuts on it, oats, some good sandwich, right? Chocolate chip cookie. These are some good chocolate chip cookies we're talking about too, right? These have to be at least like $1.89. Right? These are good. Coffee. 99 cents. Right? Okay. Seem like good prices. Sure. All right. Each item must have a unique price. We did that. Do not make anything. When a menu item button is clicked, add the menu item price to the order's total price. Okay. So I need to, when a menu item button is clicked, let me just wrap my head around this again. When I'm clicking a button, okay, whatever that price is for, let's say I click on PB&J, whatever the price for PB&J, I'm going to add to the total price. Okay. So let's come in here. I guess I need to add some like functionality, right? Maybe even like a variable. So I'll say a variable called total, and I will set it equal to 0 to start. Assign it the value of 0. All right, but I'm gonna have to like define a function here that is going to be I'm gonna have to define a few functions, and let's say I define a function called, actually, you know what? Before I start creating the functions and confuse you guys, I'm going to go through and create my labels too. So I need a label, well, sorry, I need a submit button. Rewind. Okay. Create my menu items. We'll worry about functionality later. My submit order button. Let's do that. All right, let's add that on the screen. All right, so submit button, and I'll create a button. I'll put it in the root, and I'll say order complete button. How about that? Order complete button. And then I'll say the text is, I'll say complete. Sure. All right, so I'm going to add that. I also want to add a reset button that resets the price. I click the reset button and it resets everything and starts from the beginning again. New customer, right? So I'll say root, and I'll just call this I'll call this reset. All right, and let's say I want to pack these in here, right? I'll say order complete button and reset button. All right, so if I run this, I should have all my buttons on the screen, right? And they don't really do anything yet, but they're buttons. They're there. My son crying in the background. And then labels. I need a few labels. I need a current total, and then I want a final. So I'll create a, maybe I'll put the label. So I'll go ahead and add some comments here. I'll say these are creating buttons. Right? And then I'll say adding buttons to my main window. Alright, so we create buttons. Let's go ahead and I'll say creating or adding widgets, not widgets, widgets. Okay, so I'll say creating label. There's two labels I want to make. The first one is going to be just the current total, right? And I'll just say LBL for label, right? And say label. That's eventually going to be in the root. And I'll start off the text be 0. When you first start off, you know, they haven't entered anything in there. Okay, so that'll be the text for my label. And then we'll have our final total once they finally add everything up. Right, I'll create a label, and I'm just going to put it in the root. I'm not going to put anything in it to start. So I actually want, so if I put them all at the bottom, that really wouldn't make sense. Let's say I have like my current total label. Say I have it at the very top. I'll pack it in there at the top, right? And then I'll put my final, maybe I'll put it before the reset button, right? I'll put it here. Final total label. Alright, let's see what it looks like. Let's see if I made any mistakes. Alright, looks good. So I got my price up here. I click, 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 and then I click the complete button, right? And that should give me, it'll print out my total price, right? Your total price is blah, blah. Okay. So let's go ahead here and take a look at the project. Alright, so now going back to where I was, okay? When a menu item button is clicked, add the menu item price to the order's total price. So we're going to have to define a few functions. When a menu item button is clicked, update the current total label so that the price can be seen by the user. All right, so we'll go ahead and do that. So, not there. What am I doing? Not there, not there. There. Okay. So, I'm going to define a few functions here. And I'll go ahead and do it right here. I'll define it. You know what? I'll do it at the very top. Underneath my import. All right, so define, let's just say grape. I'll say G for grape. Grape, peanut butter, and jelly. Selected. And I'll create my function. All right. So whenever the grape peanut butter jelly is selected, I'm going to go ahead and use, I guess I should set a price, right? So I'll say global PBJ, say grape peanut butter jelly price. And what I'll do to make this readable, since I'll maybe declare it outside. I'll say grape PBJ price. I'll make it a constant, right? And I'll make that, you know, I don't need to make the global peanut butter and jelly price. I need to access the total price. That's right. So I'll say global total price because I want the total price to come into my function and I want it to leave, and I want it to be global so it can be seen everywhere throughout my function, right? Or everywhere throughout my program, not just inside of this function, right? So maybe I will put this at the top here. Right. So I'll say global price is 0 to begin with. I'll do that. Okay, so I'll start with that. And then I'll go ahead and say that like the grape peanut butter and jelly price, let's assign that the value of 375, like I put up here. Right, and I'll put it as a constant. You know, maybe the prices will change one day. Maybe inflation, right? Maybe the prices will change. But for right now, for this project, I'll put it as a constant. You don't have to, but since we talked about constants this week, I'll go ahead and use it. All right, so let's say that price is not going to change, 375. And then what I'm going to do is, if the grape peanut butter and jelly is selected, I'm going to take the total price and I'm going to add to it whatever the grape peanut butter and jelly price is. Okay. So if someone were to click on this grape peanut butter and jelly, right? Well, sorry, this function I created is going to add the two together. But then I also want to display the current price in the label up here, right? I want to display where I'm currently at. So I'm going to take that label, and that label I called it current total label, and I'm going to use my config here. Config? Is it config or configure? Okay, config. Just making sure. And then I'm going to configure the text, right? And the text is going to be let's do $, and then remember my interpolation, right? I'll say %, and it's going to have 2 decimals. It's going to be a float. And then I'll close that, and then outside of it, go ahead and write the total price. Okay, so I then also have to go down here, right? If I'm looking at these, when these buttons are pressed, right? What do I want actually to happen, right? So I'm looking at the grape PB&J. Right? So I have the root, I have text, right? I want something to happen inside of here. I want this button, when this button is pressed, to actually do whatever was up here, right? So we'll talk about that in a second. I'll go ahead and define some other variables here. I'll say define, I'll call this, not defining variables, defining functions. I'll define this function, I'll say S PB&J for strawberry PB&J, and my strawberry PB&J price is going to be, what did I say it was going to be, $4.25? Yep, $4.25. Right, and then I'm going to add the price of the strawberry PB&J and update the current price. All right, I'll add another one. Right, and this time it's going to be, I'll call this chocolate chip cookie CCC selected, and I'll say chocolate chip cookie price is not $3.75. We said it was $1.89. Seems like a good cookie price, right? And now we're not going to add the grape peanut butter and jelly. We're going to add the chocolate chip cookie price. And then I'll add another function here, and I'll say coffee selected, and the coffee price was 99 cents. and I'll say coffee price. Okay. So how do I attach these functions to here? Well, I'm going to go ahead and use command, right? The command that's going to be accepted when I press the grape peanut butter and jelly, the function is going to be gpbj selected. Okay, that's all you write. You write whatever the name of the function is. Command grape peanut butter and jelly selected. Don't add the parentheses. Okay, don't do it. So if I just run this as is, let's see if it works. Fingers crossed. Ready? There you go. Try again. Add it again. All on the right track. Kind of nervous. Sometimes when I run it, even if I know things are going right, I always get nervous sometimes. I'm like, maybe this isn't gonna work. I'm gonna look dumb, right? So you guys might feel the way too, like the anxiety of about to run your program. It's good to kind of run it throughout. This was strawberry PB&J selected. That's the name I put for that one. This command was chocolate chip cookie selected. And this command, coffee, was command coffee selected. Alright, let's run this. See what I got wrong. Hopefully nothing. 375. Let's add a chocolate chip cookie, right? Let's add coffee. I should add 99 cents to it. Let's see. There you go. A cookie, 189. Let's add that to the price, right? Awesome. Boom, boom. Round up the price, getting stuff for the whole family, right? So now when I click complete, right, what I want is, I want your total is to show up on the screen. Something like that, right? All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So let me click here. Well, I guess I'll stop running this. All right, so let's go ahead and complete this. So when I click complete, I want to do a function, and I'll say define order completed, and I'll use the total price, and I guess I'll configure the name. Is it final? Yeah, final total label. I'll configure that so that the text, and then I'll say your total today is, and then I'll put percent not to F, right? And then outside of it, I'll add my percent total price. Pretty cool, right? And then, so I'm going to go ahead and connect it. My command here, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do completed. All right, so let's run this. Done module. What did I do wrong? Yep, total, not space price, total underscore price. See, I know I messed up at least once. All right, grape. Let's say I'm done. I'll add a coffee. 475, 474. Complete. Your total today is 474. I forgot my dollar sign. All right, so let me run one more time. Let's say I just come in. I'm just getting my coffee. 99 cents complete. Your total today is 99 cents. All right, maybe we add a period after it. Right. Anyway, just to show you what I did, add a period. So Coffee utility is 99 cents. Now I need to reset. I need to clear that out. I want to reset that value. So the two main things. So define, I'll just say reset order. All right, and I'll go ahead and just say global total price. I'm going to set total price to the value of 0. I'm going to go to my current total. Well, I guess the current total will automatically be reset if I set the price. Now update label. I guess I'll do down there first. I'll say, what was the last one? Final total label. And I will config, I'll say the text, and I'll just put nothing in there, right? So if I just run this as is right now, check this out. Coffee complete, right? And if I click reset, I guess I need to set the put the command next to reset, right? So I'll say command, and it's going to be reset order. If I run it, it only clears the bottom one. It's not going to clear the top one. So coffee complete, totally is 99 cents. Reset, clears the bottom. I want to set that too, right? So what I'll do is I will, I'll say this was called my current total label, right? And I'll configure the text to what I had before, right? Config text to this, right? So I'll paste this. So I'm configuring the text to this. Sounds good. All right, so I'll run it. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna get a great PB&J and a coffee, and I'm done for the day. Right, your total today is $4.74. Awesome, definitely reasonable. Here's my money. All right, next customer, reset. I want a chocolate chip cookie and a coffee. Complete. Your total today is $2.88. Get the money, reset. There you go. Awesome, got it. Let's see what the project requirements are. All right, so when a menu item, I guess each menu item should have a unique price. We did that. And I guess now that we did that, I can take those comments out at the top. Right? I don't need those comments there. All right, take my comments out. And then, all right, when a menu item button is clicked, add the menu item price to the order's total price. Did it. When a menu item button is clicked, update the current total label so that the price can be seen by the user. Yes. All right, submit. The submit button should calculate and display the order final total in a label. Did that. Make sure to include tax. Did not do that. 6% in Maryland. Multiply the current total by 1.06 to get your final total. All right, so gotta do that. Let's go back in here. So it's when the order is completed. Global total price. And I'll say total price, and I will multiply it by and assign it to 106. And the reason behind that is 6%. Right, that's my little comment there. All right, let's run it. Taxes. Right, coffee. So my coffee that was 99 cents is now 105. Oh my goodness, taxes. Right, and reset. Complete, right, cookies, right, and I'll say complete. Your total day is $5.99. Reset. Okay, so I went ahead and did that. Reset, we did that. The labels, this label should, yes. The final, including 6% tax, did that. Cool. Add color. All right, so I guess we'll add color, right? So that's what mine looks like now. Maybe I'll make the grape one. Got it. Check this out. Ready? I'll say the background color is going to be purple, and I'll add the text color, which is called the foreground. I'll make that white for the grape button. Grape PB&J. There we go. Strawberry PB&J. So the strawberry is going to be red, right? I did that before the command. EG red. And I'll make the foreground white. Why not? There you go. Chocolate chip cookie. Do I make that brown? Right. Background. Brown. And to go brown, the foreground has to be white, right? White. Run it and see what it looks like. When I make coffee though, maybe chocolate chip cookie is black. Yeah, that's what it's gonna be. And watch this. I'm getting lazy here, so I'm gonna do this right here. And I'm gonna add that, and instead of black, it's gonna be brown. Alright, run it. Alright, grape, strawberry, chocolate cookie, coffee. And the complete button, let's make that green, right? I'll go ahead and down here. I always like adding like color and all that stuff last. Like make sure it works first. Like make sure something works. Don't just like, I don't know. I feel like I get confused. If I spend too much time making it look nice in the beginning, then I forget what I'm trying to do. Make it work, and then you can always change the colors and make it look nice. Right? Alright. This doesn't look nice, right? If you want to make yours like in columns, like I taught you how to do that, I'm just making this easiest possible way. So when my last class said, can you, like, you're working too hard on this Dragon Adventure project. Can you, this is the last project, can you like show me just the easiest way? This is one of the easiest ways. But if you guys do a PB&J shop, right, there's going to be a problem. One, because I don't need any peanut butter and jelly shop business or competitors. And two, because be creative. Don't just pick what I pick, right? Change things up. Right, great PB&J, chocolate chip cookie, and a coffee. That sounds like awesome. It's about lunchtime right now. Your total is 703. Reset. I'll keep the reset gray. All right. There's my total up there. Like I said, this is not like, it doesn't look nice, but oh well. All right. Let's see. What else? That all looks good. Let me see here. All right, add color. Optional features. Well, these are optional. I teach you already in the videos how to create entries and more buttons, like a bunch more menu items. Now that I understand how my program works, I can have as many buttons as I want, right? Labels if you want, organize it, make it look nice. Be creative. You're encouraged to add on to this project beyond the project specifications if you would like. All right, you can make something just like I just made or not. So when you're done, open up a new Google Doc, take screenshots of it. So like what I would do is like if I were here, like take a screenshot of that, and then take a screenshot of that, right? And then paste them in your Google Doc, and then take a screenshot of this, right? I want to see what that looks like. And your code's output. Your output is what it actually looks like, right? I want to see how it works. Okay, answer the following questions. Where can you find TK-Inter's color chart? There's a link for it in the videos, right? Or you can just type in, watch it like TK-Inter color chart. Look at this, right? This is the website that I'm talking about, right? If I want my brown for my coffee to be a different color brown, I can pick like, I don't know, saddle brown, right? Brown 4, brown 3, brown 2, brown 1, right? You can pick, so this is where you would find it. Answer the question. All right, how do you set a widget's background color? By using the BG option or parameter, whatever you want to call it. Okay, how do you change its text color? FG. What is an F string? It's a way to format a string. You use like the curly braces, and I feel like it's a lot easier than using the concatenation and casting and converting. I just like it this way, using the F string. Why would someone use an F string? If they get tired of like keep on messing up spacing and quotation marks and pluses, in my opinion, it's an easier way to do it. Explain how to create a function and call it in Python. Well, to create a function, first I'd write def to define the function. I'd name my function whenever I want. Use open and close parentheses. If I want to add parameters in there, I can. Add a colon, press enter. It should add an indented space and then define my function, right? So that's how I would create it. And then call it later on the program. I would type in the function name, open and close my parentheses. If there's a parameter expected, then I would add arguments into that parameter, inside the parentheses, and that's how I would call my function and submit your project. FAQs. Do I need to watch TK-Inter videos this week? Yes, you do. You have to, right? Please do, especially for next week. The videos are really important, and they're going to make sense of a lot of stuff I did. If you got confused, like follow the steps. Like I can't stress this enough. People ask me all the time, like questions. And I'm like, just watch the videos. It will explain it. I spent a lot of time like making the videos on purpose, trying to think the easiest possible way to get this information to you. Do I need to use TK-Inter in my menu project? Yes. You cannot write your project using the black and white, just like command line. Now, I mean, you can, like, it is possible, but you cannot for this project. I'm not letting you. Okay. Turn your project and you're good. Let me take one last look at my code here. What happened to my, oh, let me get out of here. There's a new shell. All right, so I'll go ahead and make comments here just so that way it looks nice, right? So these are my imports. I only have one, right? So I'll say import, TK-Inter, and I'll say initialize variables, right? So normally I'd be like import modules, right? And initialize variables, and then define functions. And then down here, I would say, I'll just go ahead and add comments next to these. This is how I create space. create main window, right? And I'll say set title window, set size of window. I wonder if we're able to fit it inside a like 300. Sure we were. Just run this. Yeah, that looks a little better. Maybe not 300 width. What if I did like a 200 width? That might make it look a little nicer. And yeah, I like that. Maybe not the 300 length. Maybe even 200? Think it'll fit? Oh no, let's see. That fits perfectly. Oh, well, I guess I do have to change the width because like I can't read that. Right? Let's see what happens. Let's see if that's too much space again. Order screen 320. Maybe try 320. You can play around with your project, right? 320. All right, that's where I'm going to set mine. Right, plain and simple. Then I create my buttons, I create my labels, and then I add widgets. Are just like labels. Right, and then I'll just say window up and running. But yeah, that was my program that I made. Started with imports, initialize variables, define my functions. I went ahead and I'll just say I'll call this like main window setup. I don't know. Right, and then created my buttons. Right, I'll put full screen. Create my buttons, create labels, and then I add widgets. I kept the window open, or add the widgets to the main window. I'll put this on this side. It'll look nice. There we go. And I'll run it one last time and show you. I'm ordering one of everything on the menu. Grape peanut butter. I'm hungry. Grape peanut butter and jelly, strawberry peanut butter and jelly, chocolate chip cookie, and coffee. Right? Sounds like a pretty good lunch. Complete. Your total day is $11.53. Thank you for the money. Put it in the cash register. Here's your change. All right, thanks. Next customer. Now, there's a lot of flaws with this program, right? Where like, watch this. Well, I'm actually not going to show you, so that way you don't start double thinking yourself. But there's things that I could change. Like for example, if I press like complete, and the price came up at the bottom, but then I kept ordering, right? I've already added sales tax to it once. I already added Maryland tax. I did it the simplest possible way, right? Just because I did the simplest possible way doesn't mean it's the best way. Most of the time, it's not the best way, right? Also, I could have like right here, see how I reuse this over and over and over and over and yeah, over and over again. Well, what if you like created a function that did that rather than reusing? We talked about using functions to limit the lines of code. Might be able to do it, right? Intent. Be creative with it. Add a bunch of menu items. I want to see some really cool projects. But that's the menu project. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll make sure to also include my project file, a link. I'll put a link in the description, a GitHub link. But hope you guys understood this. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know.